My name is Tonia Ross, and I do live in the IE. I live in Moreno Valley, California. My journey began in 2006 when my son was murdered. He was 17 years old. The first thing we had to do, first of all, is get his obituary ready. And I was going through the photos, didn't have enough, didn't have the quality that I desired. I was very disappointed in what I had to offer everybody to show his legacy. So at that moment, I kind of said it out loud, but thinking out loud, and I said, nobody should have to go through this. Everybody should know what it's like, and they should understand what it's like to have photographs for your family. You are leaving something behind of yourself, and it is very important. And I said, I can't wait till I learn how to recover photos, take care of them, take pictures. At the time, I didn't even know how to do anything with a camera. So I enrolled in Riverside City College, took classes at both MVC and RCC. I was just coming out of a period of time where I had lost all of my cognitive function. When my son died, I had a 7-year bout of knowing nothing. I was completely blank. I was just in a body, but not working it. To get through that period, it was very difficult, but I did it. I ended up graduating from Riverside City College and MVC with 4 degrees. Then I went on to, what is my school? Cal Baptist University. Go Lancers. I ended up graduating from Cal Baptist with a degree in journalism and new media. And now I am currently working on my, what is it? I'm having a total breakdown, but forgive me. I am currently working on my master's degree, and I intend to go straight forward and get my doctoral. So this is my journey, and I am very excited about it. And I just spent the last week in Texas at a convention for public media and marketing. So I understand everything that's going on here, and I'm very excited to share with the students and whomever else can learn from me.
All right. Thank you, Tonia, for telling us a little bit about your background. Claire?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess my story is pretty different. It's more straightforward into journalism. Going to college, I knew I wanted to kind of do like writing and storytelling in one way or another. Didn't really know what kind of journalism I wanted to do. I did also like Billy dabbled in music journalism for a little bit. Kind of thought I was going to write about rock music because that's what I listened to. So I did some internships at Vice, Complex, put together a lot of best albums list and things like that. But then my senior year, I should mention I went to college in New York. Then my senior year I did an internship at this like local paper in downtown Manhattan, with the beat was kind of like housing, like senior housing specifically. And that's kind of when I realized that was really what I was interested in. Just fell in love with the people that I got to speak with. Telling their stories, kind of doing a lot of bilingual reporting. And from there I realized I wanted to really do more like social issues reporting, specifically about Asian American communities. That was 2017. And I did a master's program to kind of learn more about like multimedia reporting skills. That's kind of what I still write about today. But that's my story.
Thank you. Definitely, I love hearing the stories, and Tonia, I'm very sorry to hear about your son, but I'm happy to see that you're able to take that experience and channel that into some way you can also help other people. I kind of always, not necessarily journalism, but like in junior high school, I was interested in being on the yearbook staff. My dad wouldn't let me do it because he wanted me to use my electives in another way. So, but when my schedule opened up, in the junior year, I, joined the yearbook staff, and I did that for my junior senior year, and I just loved it. Then when I got to college, I was started as a computer science major, but math and science was a problem. So I was trying, but it was a big struggle. So I just pulled out my transcripts to see what classes I was doing well in, and anything that had to do with writing or speech, were, and I was thinking, wow, well, my professors, and even in high school, they were having me read my essays aloud. And I would always be kind of surprised, like, well, why'd you pick me, So I just started thinking about it, and I thought, like, well, it kind of comes naturally, and I guess I enjoy it, so I should look into majors that had a lot of writing involved. And so that's how I came across communications. And so I just kind of started there. And then once I got on that track, I thought, okay, I like to write. I seem to do well. What should I write about? And I just thought, well, what's another love that I could pair it with? And I thought music. My dad was a musician. We grew up with a lot of music in the house, and so I thought, wow, if I could create a job where I get paid to write about music, like, that would be crazy. And so it was just like a vision, a dream. I was reading, the magazines and stuff like that. And so that was the beginning. So January of 1990, I was in my third year, and that's when I changed my major. And at that point, I changed it. I started working at the Riverside Black Boys News, and I also started doing a radio show at KSSB, and at Cal State San Bernardino. And yeah, I just jumped on it like hard, and really loved it, and just started just pursuing anything. Like, if I saw that someone had connections, I would ask them. I started writing, things for the paper, and then I started sending it to magazines and asking the publicists that I was meeting to do, I was really aggressive about doing it while I was in college. So by the time I graduated, I had already made contacts with all the major record labels who had hit records, and they were sending me music and giving me interviews. And that was literally like the beginning of it. So by 1994, I was able to get a job as a managing editor for a hip hop magazine called Rap Sheet. So at the time, there were 3 big hip hop magazines, and that was one of them. So I worked there for about 4 years. That was good. So sorry, I had to remember I was only supposed to talk about how I got started.
It's okay. It was very interesting.
Yeah, we need a break, like a stop or something. I just get it. Yeah. Thanks.
It was quite interesting, you sharing your story, because it's got a lot of parallels with what students need to be doing today. You were out there hitting the ground running, pounding the pavement, right? Making cold calls. You paired your major, the skills that you learned in school, with your love. So communications, journalism, with your love for music. So that's a good takeaway for students. I want to just ask the quick question, and Tonia, thank you for sharing your story as well, and sorry for your loss. I would like to ask each of you if you could go down the list and share what a typical day looks like for you, for students who are, in pursuing journalism. Tell us how you get started, and what steps you go through to pursue stories and things like that.
I guess you want to start with me?
Sure.
Okay. Again, I'm Tonia. Well, this semester, I am a grad assistant for LMG, which is Lancer Media Group, at my current college. But prior to that, in undergrad, I worked for 2 or 3 publications. And so I did most entertainment. And so every weekend I would have to go out and cover the stories that we had spoke about the previous week, get the information. I was the only one going out during the pandemic, so I was almost solo, even though we had a team. I would go out and get the stories, cover it with my camera as well as my drone. I would also write our we had a writer, but he would never come out. So I would have to either tell him what happened or write it myself. I don't know why he never came, but I was out there alone. So I had to do it all. And we would get those stories out to the newspaper every week. A couple of times, Dr. Rice would call me up and say, "Can you cover this? Get me some photos." I would say, "Sure." I would get them. I'm out there every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday were my days that I mostly covered information because it was entertainment during the pandemic. And I also was out there doing the protests. So I have many, many cities that I covered during the protests. And as well, I was in DC during the insurrection. So I also got a couple of photos prior to that. Yeah. And that's normally what I do every week. I wanted to make sure that the new students understand that it's not just going out to take photos or to get your story. You have to pitch first. So most of the time there is a meeting either the week before, because there also is breaking news. So if there's breaking news, you also have to get that out. Breaking news doesn't wait for anybody. So you have to be ready, have your stuff. I always have my cameras charged up. I have extra batteries charged up. My drone is charged up right now and I haven't used it in quite some time. I have everything ready to go so I can just grab those backpacks and head out. But you have to pitch your story to, most of the time it's your editor, or you may have a team, and you might think that the story is like, yay, it's gonna be so good. And they go, no. And you're like, oh my God, my heart is broken. But it's not about you. It's about your audience. So your stories need to reach the audience that they are targeting. So just remember, if you pitch a story and they don't pick it up, it's okay. Just keep trying, just keep doing it. And eventually you'll get some things going. Yeah. That's it.
Thank you, Tonia. I think that was amazing advice. Claire?
Yeah, I guess a typical day for me, because I do freelance, is not really a set like 9 to 5 schedule by any means. It depends on if I have like stories lined up. I usually will be doing interviews like throughout the day, and then at night I'll be doing most of my writing, except when there's a breaking story, then I just have to like do everything within a few hours. There have been times when I would be sent out on location, just kind of last minute. And yeah, I guess for freelancers it's a little bit interesting because there will be times when I do have to meet up with a photographer, but because we've never met before, it's a lot of like just communicating on our own and trying to like find each other. When I don't have stories lined up or I'm like done reporting, I would spend most of my time like finding story ideas. So yeah, kind of going off what Tonia was saying, you should always be coming up with story ideas if you can. I think in my pitching process, luckily I do have a pretty good relationship with my editor now at NBC. So I just kind of go straight to her, and I don't have to really write out formal pitches anymore. It's just sort of like, oh, I'm thinking of doing this story on something. What do you think about it? But starting off, if I'm trying to pitch somewhere else, or like really early on when I started pitching my editor, is sort of very formal pitch when I have to really know which sources I plan on interviewing, the basic structure of what the story looks like, so kind of like a nut graph in your pitch. Because I'm a print reporter, I don't really have to do like photos or anything like that. But I guess that's kind of going off topic a little bit. But having those skills is definitely important. Just saying that, oh, I'm going on scene to report this story, but I can also get you pictures if you need. I think that's like a good skill to mention in your pitches. But yeah, sorry, I think I went off track a little bit.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Okay, thank you. And Billy, so tell us what a typical day looks like for you.
Okay, well now I'm working in PR. So, but I think it's more appropriate to tell a story of editorial role. So my last
tell both, because we do have some students that might be interested in PR and giving the wide range. So if you have 2 quick anecdotes you could share, like, please do.
Sure. Okay. Well, in my last role as the senior editor for Yahoo Music, we wanted our content to surface on the Yahoo homepage. So one of my last roles were, I did the morning shift of managing the homepage. So would start 4 or 5 in the morning, like just looking for, maybe 10 stories that I think they might be interested in. So we had lots of feeds. So it was combing the feeds, to pick the stories that we thought the front page would be interested in. And so sending that out to them and then waiting, as Tonia and Claire mentioned, so we were pitching them. And then they would tell us if they were interested in any of those stories. Sometimes they may use a story directly from the feed, or sometimes they would want us to do our own reporting. So then assigning whether I would write it or assign it to a freelance writer. And so just managing that process and, making sure that, it was updated on the site and so forth. And then if I was doing interviews, I would schedule those a little later in the day and and work those out. And then we would also have other longer lead stories that we may have been working on and just working to get those done. So that was pretty much how I normally worked. And then of course going out when necessary. And then now as a publicist, I actually I have 9 or 10 different clients, and now I have 4 part-time employees, which is super cool. So it kind of varies from client to client because, the services are kind of customized, but a big part of that is pitching journalists on covering the clients. So depending on what's coming up for a client. Yesterday, a client had an event. He's got this TV show, Hip Hop Homicides, that's on WeTV, and will be the third week. So he had an event last night, and it was a screening, and so help manage the list, the RSVP list, and work on the door with my colleague who I'm working with on that. And but the journalism thing tied in because with my journalism background, and the client knew that I had that background. So as he was planning the event and he wanted to do a Q&A, like Monday, he said, "Oh, Billy, yeah, we'll have you do the Q&A," which was a great opportunity. It's P. Frank Williams and Van Lathan, formerly of TMZ, who are the hosts. So the journalist side of me was really excited that I'm going to get to do the Q&A, but also the PR side of me is like, I'm going to be in PR mode. I'm going to have all those responsibilities. Like, how am I going to make that shift? But I definitely wanted to seize the moment and all the stress that came with it. But I think that's a big part of it. It is a stressful job, I think, because everything is on demand. You're expected to work fast and to be accurate on everything. That's really hard, right? You have to turn, when someone died and I had to write about Whitney Houston's death or Michael Jackson's death, they want that story in 45 minutes. Kanye West, snatched the award from Taylor Swift. Where's the story, Billy? Where is it? And that, 25 years of that was enough.
That was a lot.
That was enough for me. So that's my experience.
Okay, cool. I like the next question. So one of the things I want you guys to talk about, your path, you started at a different time than some of our students. So your paths were a little bit different. So I'm hoping that you guys can speak to our students about like the best ways that they can get into media today. Like what would be the best way that they could enter the field if they wanted to do what you guys were doing, or if they want to be media professionals? Like, how would they go about, like, what would you suggest would be some of the first things that they should do? Claire, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think when I was in school, I was always told the way to do it is to get an internship.
Right.
Like if you want to do writing, like write as much as you can. If you want to do photojournalism, take photos, like try to build a portfolio or a website. obviously a lot of internships don't pay very much these days, so it's not like realistic for most people to just, obviously like unpaid internships shouldn't even, like if you, I personally have, I think a lot of people have opinions about like not about unpaid internships. Yeah, I think, yeah, another way to go about it, and I know I did this, some of my friends did this, is you could get a, you know, job in kind of a adjacent field. So if you want to do reporting, there are, I think, more jobs in like social media and things like that for a company that you really want to work at. And then freelance on the side or build clips on the side. And then there is an opportunity to get a reporting job once one opens up. But I think, yeah, for me, I got my start just freelancing. I was really just shamelessly pitching to a lot of places, and just hoping someone would get back to me, would give me a chance when I didn't have a lot of clips under my belt. And eventually when I got one story published, that kind of opened the door for me to just get more stories done. Yeah, and I think, as we kind of talked about earlier, just always be thinking about story ideas. I think in interviews, at least all the interviews I've gotten, I've always been asked, like, which story would you write for us? Like, how would you go about it? I think, yeah, the skills that you have are important, but more so is just the way you think. And yeah, I think, so this is pretty like reporting focused. I know not everyone maybe wants to go into reporting, but yeah, if you can like dabble in like multimedia reporting, like take photos or videos, even if you're not the most polished, at least just show people that you're willing to try different things. That's the good way to go about it.
Okay, thank you so much. Billy, I want to go to you, and I'm going to shift the question just a little bit because of all of our guests, you're in a unique position. As you mentioned, you actually have your own business. So a media business, and I know you said you have a small staff, but still you have a staff. So what are you looking for? Do you have interns? Let me ask you that first. Do you have interns yet?
Yes, I have one intern, but it's like for a 4 or 5 week process.
Okay.
But I do want to have like, I would love to have like an intern in place, you know.
Okay. So what would you look for in a student, in an intern? Like if you
Well,
were
you know, it's probably because of my personality, but I think a lot of times like the internship programs that I've heard of, they're like, the organization is like, I have this need and, you know, this is what you're going to do, which I think is fine. And I mean, even when I started the Riverside Black Voice News, I was a production assistant.
Okay.
But I didn't get paid to write, but I just volunteered that because that's what I want to get out of it. Now, but I like to find out what they're interested in doing, you know? So like for this new intern I'm going to start with, I send her links to my 9 or 10 clients and said, you know, look at all of them. We talked and I went over them, but I sent her the links and said, look at them, tell me which ones you're interested in, you know, what kind of things you want to work on, and then let's talk about it, because there's so many things that need to be done. And so I'm going to find a place. I know she's interested, so we're going to have another talk. But yeah, I'm kind of open. I mean, I do social media for clients. We do interviews for clients. There's lots of research because we're building out media lists. There's lots of research to find the Claires and Tonias of the world that we want to pitch our clients to. We want to make sure we're pitching the right people. And I have clients in different backgrounds: a cannabis business, a domestic violence intervention program, authors, you know. And so like that, it's so there's lots of things to do. So I'm very open, you know, based on the services that my company offers. So I literally just like try to have that conversation, find out what because they should get something out of it that's going to help them when they're moving. So I try to be flexible in that sense.
Okay. Is there a specific skill or anything that you look for in hiring an intern?
Well, I mean, it's mostly work ethic, you know.
Okay, that's fair.
Because I mean, the sure, like writing, but like someone that I just hired as a publicity assistant, she's really good I haven't like my writing I think is fine, but I miss typos and stuff like that. So I needed like a copy editor or something, someone could help. And so, and since this person has come on, like grammar and all that stuff, it's a strong suit for her. So that's been like a blessing, you know, because just to have someone on my team to give another read to something before I send it out even to a client for their approval, it's been great. So yeah, those things that go with writing and so forth that are good. You know, again, there's lots of research. Yeah, social media skills. I have one person who's like, you know, video editor. So that's very important because we need that content. And so I would just say anything that's media related. And you know, everyone's not going to do everything. So it's just a matter of just seeing what the strong suits are and giving them tasks that are best suited for them.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And
Mhm.
Tonia, I'm going to shift the question a little bit for you as well, because of, again, all of our guests, you probably are one of the ones that most recently had internships or just graduated from school and got
Yeah.
those sort of entry-level jobs out of college and even have done some freelance work. So how did you go about it? Like, what did you do to sort of land a lot of the jobs and the positions that you've got?
Well, um, at Cal Baptist University, it is a requirement for us to get an internship.
Okay.
I did end up working for a paper that was African American. I don't want to drop the name because I have a little bit of things to say, so
Okay.
I won't drop the name. But I ended up working for an African American paper, and I was so excited. I had such high hopes, but um, I was let down a bit.
Okay.
But what I did learn is that just because someone is the same race as you, I mean, they have the same ethics, does not mean that they, like the typos and things like that. I noticed that a lot in the paper. I also noticed that they always forgot me in my byline. I was like, hey, I was out there in that hot sun all summer by myself and nobody put my name. So it's little things like that, and little things do add up.
Mhm.
So when I show my portfolio, a lot of times I did all that work and my name is not on the byline. Um, so that was the way that I got those jobs. And also I am part of the PR team at my school.
Mhm.
So I ended up covering some PR events, and I went to one event, and a guy from, I think it was Spectrum, hired me to take photos for another event. And from that, the ball rolled. All summer, I was paid. I did not get paid from my internship at all, even though they did promise to help with the gas money. And gas is high,
Yeah.
but they did not help at all. They promised to get me equipment. That did not happen either. So I did all of my assignments and I did them with grace. I looked at the situation for what it was for. And what I did learn was always make sure you give someone their byline. I learned all the negative things. I did not feel that they were just a loss. I felt that they were teaching moments. I
Mm.
felt that I now understand what it's like for a person not to get their byline. So when it's my turn to put a byline, I'm definitely going to do that. I've learned that it's not easy being out there amongst the crowd. And if someone needs help, I'm going to make sure that the other people show up. I tell you, the entire summer, I had no one out there except for me. Our team was supposed to show up, but I guess once I did everything alone, they were like, Tanya, get it. But that wasn't easy. I also work a drone, so I was taking photos, doing my drone, interviewing people, getting their names, getting their background stories, making sure I had everything typed correctly because you don't want to get people's names wrong in your stories. Um, that wasn't easy to do all of that by myself, but I did it every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And guess what happened from that negative? I feel like I'm a powerhouse now because there is no event I can't cover by myself and I'm not scared. So
Nice.
sometimes when you have a negative experience, it can turn into something great. And also to bounce back off what Billy said, he said no one could do it all. And I'm like, oh man, I've been doing it all. I've been doing marketing, PR, because I'm on the team at my school. I'm also part of the Lancer Media Group. I was a photo editor, and I also have done the weather at my school. We have CBU TV. I think I've done everything except for radio. And so I've done it all. And anytime something happens, if they need somebody, I'm ready to jump in. And not just because I just want to jump in. I want to learn it all. So one day, if I'm at the top, even if I'm not the best at everything, at least I'll be able to run something and know what it's supposed to be like. So I take it all as a plus, and I'm very grateful.
Thank you, Tonia. Billy, I see your hand. I wanted to acknowledge
Yeah.
that question.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to I love all the things Tonia was saying. I just wanted to stress a couple things. She mentioned grace. She just said the word grace. That's so important. It's a small industry, a small group, whatever area that you're going to go in, it's small. So, how you interact with people is very important, because your reputation is what leads to other things. So you can go from a place where people aren't responding, and then it could shift, and people will see your work. And if they like it, they'll call you, the snowball thing. So you got to make sure that you are keeping a good rapport with people, because they will refer you, if they like your work. I think it'd be good to join an association. I wish I had done that. In college, we did have opportunities to join the national the journalists. I'm just spacing right now, but the Black Journalists Association, and I wish I had done it. And I see lots of my friends who are like CNN, Spectrum, Anchor, whatever. They are still a part of these organizations. They go on their network, and I think it's been really helpful for them to really, it's just invaluable to just have these relationships with other people who are doing the same job. So that you guys make sure you take advantage of those opportunities. And also while you're trying to get an internship or freelance assignments, you can be blogging, you can be vlogging. I mean, look at how many influencers have like huge followings. They're getting really big interviews, but the companies, the media companies, they want to feel confident that you can do the work that they would hire you to do. So you need to be able to demonstrate that, and you could demonstrate that from your own blog if you're being professional about it. Just because it's your own blog doesn't mean it should be filled with typos, or that you don't have the proper structure, how to write an article. I say the places that you're interested in working for, model your work after what they do and create it independently, and you can use that to help you get other work. So thanks.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Professor Burrell, and I think we were going to open it up for questions. Professor Burrell, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. We have our first question on the floor. It's from Kevin. He's asking a question of Claire. The question is, as a freelancer, what is your favorite sector to cover? And then why don't you tell us why and how you cover that sector?
Sector like beat or
Beat.
subject?
Yeah, I would think beat, right? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess for me it's a bit interesting because I started freelancing at the beginning of the pandemic. So I was, at that time, you were sort of like limited in what you could cover because everyone was interested in were like pandemic related stories. So basically for most of 2020, if I even wanted to pitch like, more like lighthearted, like culture story, I couldn't really get landed anywhere because everyone's focus is on the pandemic. Yeah, so I guess within that beat, my favorite kind of story to cover was sort of these like profiles of people who were trying to survive during the pandemic. So a lot of businesses that had made a switch into just doing like innovative things to I'm trying to think of, there's like a family-run butcher shop in Chinatown that turned into, basically went from like, they were selling meat to, they pretty much just started donating food to everyone to make sure that people in the community were being fed. Stories like that. There were, I'm trying to remember. This is a while ago.
As you're thinking, if I can butt in there and
Yeah.
ask you another question,
Sure.
you also mentioned you do fact checking. Do you
Yes.
fact check as a freelancer for different media outlets? Can you describe a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, sure. So that started this, okay, yeah, I think this might be helpful in a way. I started, I was interning at a political magazine from back in 2019, before the pandemic started. And when I started freelancing, I kind of lost touch with them, but they kind of reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to continue fact checking for them. That was something I did while I was interning. So yeah, that was how I started fact checking while writing. And I had some editors back at that place who'd taken note of my fact checking work, and they'd connected me to, other reporters who were writing books. So I've been like fact checking books on the side. And just, I think one time on Twitter, I saw that this other political magazine called The Week was looking for a fact checker part-time. So I just DM'd them like, hey, I have some fact checking experience. So I do fact checking for them Tuesdays and Wednesdays from like 12 to 4. That's been like a constant thing now. So yeah, I guess Twitter is another good place to look for just like temporary side gigs. I follow this page called, I think, like freelance writers or something, and they post a lot of job opportunities. Yeah, but I think going back to the other question, my favorite subject to cover would be just sort of like human interest stories. Yeah, profiles of people.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all. Let's open it up for questions from anyone. And thank you for getting us started, Kevin. So who has a question? Feel free to raise your hand. Obviously, don't be shy. You're journalists. And who's going to pop out there and ask a question, a burning question they have on their mind? While you're thinking of questions, here's one that I have for the our special guests, and that is, what advice do you have for aspiring journalists to get their foot in the door? We talked about internships, we talked about getting your skills ready, making cold calls, but is there something else that you could share for those folks who are looking to be a sports journalist or, get out there and make a career of it? Because obviously you're doing it as a career. And how can you, I guess, encourage them or share some advice for getting started as well, to follow in your footsteps?
Well, one thing I'll say is with regard to pitching, I mean, one, and with the different beats, you have to prove that know that beat thoroughly, right? So, and if you're not, and being a journalist is a good way to do it, but until you get clips, but again, it could be that when a game happens, you are on Twitter, doing play-by-plays, and it's very thorough and very professionally done. That could be something that you could use to demonstrate what you're doing. But that's very oh my gosh, I had another point that I lost in that. You definitely have to demonstrate that. Oh, and when you're pitching, one thing that was effective for me when I was pitching, what I think a mistake that people make when you're pitching is that you take the most obvious popular story that everyone else is already covering, wants to cover, and you reach out to a publication, say, I want to cover this. Well, they already have that covered, so you should really study them and see where there's a hole, see what they're missing, and offer that to them. So the Hollywood Reporter, the way I got to write for the Hollywood Reporter is that, as crazy as it was in 1996, they weren't covering all these hip hop shows, and I was going to 3 or 4 hip hop shows a week. So I literally just sent a fax and said like, hey, I go to, next week I'm going to these 3 concerts. I don't see a lot of hip hop coverage. I'm the managing editor of this hip hop magazine. I'm going anyway. Can I cover it for you guys? And that the Hollywood Reporter, the guy called me back the same day and was like, really, you're going to the Run DMC concert at the Dragonfly? Okay, sure, you can do that for us. So like, try to be intentional, with that. Pay attention and see where, because that also tells them, I told them, 1, I have access, I'm going, to make this happen. 2, I know, what's relevant, on this beat. I got the trusted background to be able to do it. So you want to present yourself that way. You want to come across as a person who's in the know, who can make it to make it happen. And I think that helped me in a lot of instances.
Nice. While Billy was talking, did anybody come up with or have any questions for any of our guests? No? Well then, yes.
I have one thing I wanted to throw in there because we didn't talk about my favorite subject, which is digital storytelling. I do document as well. A lot of places that you may think is odd, you can write for museums, you can write for all kinds, it's other media outlets besides a newspaper or other things. And everybody now is doing digital storytelling. They want that as part of their portfolio. So the oddest places that you think won't need a story will need the story, as well as photographs, as well as a digital story. It's not so popular now just to do a PowerPoint. They want the story going as well.
Mm-hmm.
So just think, like every museum has a PR department. They all have publications. They all have everything. Every business that there is has some type of publication these days. So don't just think that there's only a couple of type of outlets that you can do. There's more than just radio, television, newsprint, and magazines. There's other things, and just be open to explore all those things.
Thank you, Tonia, for that.
Let them know that.
Anything else?
Well, I see a question from Dylan I'd like to respond to.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Dylan asked for any of the seasoned vets. Okay, well, vet, all right. What are some differences in journalism now versus back in the day? Social media, of course, being huge, and just the just the community reporting, right? And so that's been a huge thing. And it was actually very weird, the onslaught of it, because I didn't know how to take it, because being a journalist, working for an established news, like, it's such a coveted thing, and you getting access and opportunities. It's, there's like a pedigree, and you got to work to get to a certain place. And then I was just seeing all these, social media influencers on the rise and getting access. I'm like, I didn't get offered that interview, so I was in my feelings for quite some time. So that was, that part was different, but but I think it's good, because it made everyone, kind of keeps you on your toes and make you feel a little more competitive and stuff. The other thing I was going to say is, on the music front, one thing that I don't like is that when I was getting started as a music journalist, I was excited to cover new artists, SWV and Fat Joe and Common, and there's so many artists that I was exposed to before they blew up, and I just liked them from the first time I got their advanced tape 3 months before anything came out, and I learned to trust my gut. And even at the hip hop magazine I was working for, sure, we put the A-list person on the cover, but the magazine would be filled with all these other emergent artists. And now with my music clients, it's like no one wants to write about someone unless you have a certain number of followers, you have a certain number of views. And I feel like it's backwards because they are supposed to be like the leaders who are exposing people to the next thing, whereas they're following the lead of the what's happening on social media. So I don't like that. But yeah, there's a lot. But social media, I think, is had a huge impact.
Okay, cool. I see another question from Alyssa. It says, if I major in journalism, can I still pursue a career in PR if I decide to go that route instead?
Yeah, and I think just what Tonia was saying, all the opportunities are out there. But a journalism background is a perfect background for PR. I mean, there's certain approaches, that might be different, but learning how to write, knowing what's important, what's a good story, is really important. I had even last night when I did the Q&A, I had a lot of people come up to me and say, "Oh wow, that was I really liked your interview," and it was just kind of weird because they don't know that I'm a journalist. I'm a journalist, so it's an appreciated skill set. Getting people on the phone or pitching people and hosting parties is one aspect of it, but the main thing your client wants is coverage. And like a journalist, journalists speaking to other journalists, it's a very it's a great skill to have.
Perfect, thank you. So go ahead, Claire.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just gonna say I have spoken to many people in PR or communications directors for elected officials who were previously journalists. So yeah, I think it's a pretty common route that people end up taking.
Okay. So yes, so journalism is a common route in PR. So thank you both for that. We're almost out of time. Before we go, I did want to actually share something with everyone. So Tonia started out as one of my journalism students. So Tonia, I'm going to share your photo essay, and I just want you to talk through, if you don't mind, very quickly, just a couple of the photos here. So if I can share my screen. So this was right when the pandemic started, and we did a photo essay called Desolation. And so Tonia was sort of capturing the pandemic right when it happened for us in real time. And so this was maybe March, right after we had to leave campus. And so Tonia, I'm gonna shut up and let you kind of talk about it a little bit and sort of share with us what you were thinking and what you were seeing and what you were trying to capture for this particular photo essay.
Okay, I actually went to the Moreno Valley campus, and I've never seen it with no people there. So I just parked my car and I walked around and I just looked at all the things that were different. I just love this photo here that says stop, because there is no one there. This is part of the campus that's usually full with students just sitting at these tables, eating their lunch. The library, there's no one there. It was eerie. I even got into a couple of places because I know the campus, so I was looking through, took photos through the windows to show inside of the buildings where there was no one, absolutely no one. And it was, yeah, this is actually inside of, I believe that's the science building. It was no people, absolutely none. And so I wanted to capture that in a story and let people know how eerie it was. Yeah, this hallway, no one. And I also did a few, I did a few digital stories as well, moving parts with it. It was very eerie. And even now looking back at some of the photos, it just feels like it was so long ago. People
Kind of lost you there.
This meeting is being recorded.
it's kind of weird that people have already forgotten what it was like when no one was outside. And I haven't forgotten. I've got millions of photos. I have so much information, and I try and make sure that I catalog it correctly, but it's strange to see a college campus completely empty and void of human beings.
Right. Well, thank you for that, Tonia. I just wanted to take a minute and just kind of
This
share
meeting
that.
is being recorded.
I don't know why they keep interrupting me, but I just wanted to share that very quickly. So we got about 2 minutes left, and we have to close out because I know Professor Burrell is with her students in her class and has to wrap up. Any last words or any last thoughts from any of our guests or panelists today?
I just quickly want to respond to Dylan's question. Do I think it's easier to break into journalism? I would just say easier in that anyone can create their own blog and use their social media. I mean, these influencers, many of them started with nothing and have really rose. Yeah, so.
Okay. Any last thoughts from anybody else?
I just wanted to piggyback off of what I'm sorry. I just want to piggyback off of what he's saying. You're correct. Just be out there and be hungry. I have a blog as well. My blog is I have lupus, so my blog is about living my fabulous life with lupus. There are a lot of people who are not able to do the things that I do. I always tell everybody I just drag this body along and keep on pushing on. And I try and live my life with a positive attitude. And so I share the down times, the negative times of living my life with lupus, as well as the victories. And I put that on my blog. And even if nobody ever reads it, sometimes I get more phone calls or people connecting me with other people with lupus. So you never know where your breakthrough is going to come. Just stay hungry and just keep your toe in all forms of media. I also did add that you can join groups at your school. I put it in the chat, PRSA. I put the details. So anybody who wants to get into PR or marketing, you can do it without having it be your major. Just join groups.
All right, thank you. Claire, I saw you were trying to get in there, and we got to wrap up soon, and then I'll turn it back over to Professor Burrell.
Yeah, I guess kind of just piggybacking off what everyone else is saying. Join like listservs of these journalist associations are really helpful. I know NABJ was mentioned. There's also NAHJ for Hispanic journalists, AJ for Asian American journalists. They you can join their email chains or something. They post a lot of like job listings, calls for pitches, also conferences where they'll have professional journalists or PR people come like talk to you. Is a really good place for community and mentorship. And finally, I think it might sound really cliche, but like don't be afraid to make mistakes. I think I learned a lot of my biggest lessons like on the job. Not really like in school I learned a lot too, but it was when I actually made big mistakes of I really don't want to expose myself here, but you know, like writing people's names wrong and things like that, that I actually stopped doing that. So like it's not the end of the world if you make mistakes like that. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
All right.
Well, thank you all. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but thank you, our guests, and thank you all students for coming and joining. And we'll see you later.